Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. Can't remove the charge? Well, I'll just use it then. In the early 2000s, when I first moved out on my own, I rented from a complex that charged you for assigned parking. It was an upcharge of $25 a month. If you didn't get assigned parking, you would have to fight for a space on the street. My apartment was in the back of the complex and I was getting over a recent knee and ankle injury, so I opted for paid parking that was relatively close to my front door. My car was a junker, 3 years older than I am, but it ran semi-okay and the heater worked. As a newly minted adult, I was happy to have it. About 3 months into my lease, my car went to the great scrap heap in the sky. I had gotten used to the local transit system and discovered a nearby store would drop off groceries for me. This was long before Walmart and other stores started doing it, so it was cheaper than figuring a month's supplies on the bus. So I opted not to replace the car and utilize the bus pass my work reimbursed me for. I went to my leasing office and told them I no longer needed the space, and would you please remove the extra charge from my bill? The manager at the desk was new and had never been asked that before. She promised to look into it and let me know. I was naive and figured it would be gone come next month. Nope. It was still there. I paid all but the parking space and called up the complex. Same girl. She said she was awaiting word from higher-ups and offered me a credit for the charge as a one-time courtesy. I reminded her that I no longer owned a car. I hadn't just changed my mind. I told her that the space had been empty for close to a month now and that I won't be utilizing it. She said she understood loud and clear and would get it sorted by next month. 3 days before rent was due, she finally got back to me. Apparently, it was in my lease and couldn't be removed without breaking the lease and signing a new one. Even if I didn't move out, the lease breaking and initiation fees would be charged to me, and my rent would go up to the new current market value. This would be over $1,000, so not an option for someone freshly on their own. I kept the parking space on the lease. 3 weeks later, I was reviewing my lease to get the phone number for maintenance, and noticed the clause for the parking space. Essentially, I could park a motorcycle, scooter such as Vespa, car, truck, SUV, or trailer in the space. Gears were turning. For me to be in compliance, I had to have wheels on anything parked in my space. So I went to my local version of Craigslist and found a wheeled container similar to a shipping container. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every cent. The complex offered storage sheds at an upcharge too. Being fresh out of high school, I didn't have much to store. My neighbor, though, did. I threw a lock on the unit and offered it to my neighbor for half the cost of a shed, $35 a month. He was able to move his stuff out of his storage unit where he was paying over $100 a month, and the container was available 24/7 for 365 days. He was happy for the arrangement and paid several months in advance. The complex put several tow stickers for out of compliance on the trailer, but I called the tow company and faxed them a copy of the lease where it says trailers are allowed. The container was registered with the county as a utility trailer, so there's nothing they could do. They tried to fine me for improper parking, but again, I had proof I was within my rights. They even offered to remove the charge for parking on my lease if I would relocate the container. With what my neighbor was paying, I could cover my water bill every month, so I declined. I stayed 18 months and sold the trailer to my neighbor when I moved out. He had to rent a car to relocate it to his assigned space, but he said it was worth the couple hundred he paid. He ended up saving over $1,000 a year renting from me. Other neighbors even started bringing in their own containers too, even if it meant getting a second space. Sheds were being vacated at such a large volume, the complex tried to give them away at 6 months free. Few took them up on it. The complex amended the new leases to exclude trailers, but could do nothing about those that already had them in the spot. Instead of moving out and giving notice, renters would reassign their lease to new people so they could be grandfathered into the trailer clause. I drove by the facility 2 years or so after I moved out, going to a friend's for Thanksgiving. The complex had been sold to a new owner and changed their name. But wouldn't you know, there were still about a dozen wheeled shipping containers parked in the lot. Next story. I cost Bank of America $8,000 legally. A bit of context, I've been in the mortgage and related businesses for over 30 years. I know it very well. I've never liked Bank of America, especially their servicing division. This story happened a few years ago. I refinanced my mortgage through a mortgage broker and, to my aggravation, they sold the servicing rights to Bank of America. The entity that owns your loan is usually different than one that you pay to service the loan. I was miffed. I estimated that a Bank of America paid $5,000 to service my loan, as most folks at the time expect loans to stay on the books at least 3 years. Another little fact: mortgage services are paid 0.25%, fixed, to 0.375%, adjustable, of your outstanding loan balance per year. It comes out of the interest you pay to the bank. If you want to know how much your servicer got any particular month using the formula service pay equals current loan balance, 0.25% divided by 12. About 2 months after the servicing switched, Bank of America announced they'd be charging a $5 fee for the convenience to pay the mortgage online. Truly an unwarranted money grab. I'm blessed that I can put a little extra towards my mortgage payment every month. So the following month, I took out my mortgage payment plus $400 in quarter from my local bank. I then went to my local Bank of America branch and handed them my mortgage payment in quarters and repayment stub. I asked for a receipt of payment. I overpaid my mortgage to reduce the current balance and thereby reducing Bank of America's fees. The nice branch manager said you can write a check, you don't have to pay in coins. I said I could, but I would charge a $9.50 convenience fee for the stamp, my check, and ink used. The branch manager actually laughed and said okay. They counted the money and I got my receipt. Next month, the charge was still there, so I went to another local Bank of America branch which had gotten bad reviews on Yelp due to a hostile bank manager. I did the same thing. The branch manager said write a check. We don't accept quarters. I said, shall I call the local state's banking commissioner, the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, U.S. top bank regulator, and say you won't accept legal tender? I asked to talk to the district manager. I was making a stink. After about 20 minutes, he grudgingly had the staff count the quarters and I got a receipt. I told the manager that I would be bringing dimes next time. The next month I brought dimes. He accepted them but glared at me the whole time. After that payment, Bank of America rescinded their convenience fee. The month after that I refinanced my mortgage at a lower rate. Bank of America only got roughly 6 months of fees for servicing they expected to last 3 years at minimum. 5 years to be profitable. One of my proudest malicious compliance moments. Next story. I got fired for this, but worth it. Waiting tables at a regional specialty pizza place about 10 years ago. Family comes in, taking their order, and the teenage daughter wants a calzone and wants chicken wings as a filling/topping. I start to confirm she wants wings. This was before the boneless wing craze, because they have bones in them. She gives me that open mouth, raised eyebrow look that says, did I stutter? I say I'm going to have to check with the kitchen, and I ask a line cook if he could put wings in a calzone. His response was, I guess. And he translates to the pizza guy what we need. Pizza guy shrugs and nods at me. I go back to the table and say the kitchen says they can do it, but I want to make sure you want chicken wings in your calzone. The dad, exasperated, says, buddy, why is this so hard? Not hard at all, sir, coming right up. The kitchen guys are actually chuckling while they put this thing together. I walk it to the table, happily drop it off, and get called back 3 minutes later to explain why there's bones in a calzone. I am very comfortable with confrontation. Say this is what you asked for. I confirm twice, and the dad snaps his finger to the manager and calls her over. He complains there's bones in his daughter's calzone. Manager looks at me and I say I confirmed twice she wanted chicken wings, and the dad says you know what she meant, like chicken meat. I explain there's chicken meat on those bones. Manager tells me to wait elsewhere. Manager takes the tongue lashing from customer and personally makes a new calzone. Mind you, the family eats their food while new calzone is being made. Forcing teenager to eat alone while dad keeps looking at his watch. I was fired, with no protest from me, about 10 minutes later. In fact, I got to leave before calzone girl finished her meal. And take great satisfaction knowing the manager had to bust the table afterwards. Next story. Bossy coworker screws himself out of a promotion. I thought about this one today and it made me smile, so I thought I'd share. My first job out of high school was a big deal for me. It was a simple data entry job that I took very seriously. I started moving up very quickly. With so many young entry-level employees, turnaround was high, and I guess sticking around made me stand out. I was soaring in that company. Before I knew it, I was a supervisor over a team. In the department I was in, there was only one other supervisor. We worked very well together and agreed on almost everything. The two of us made a full training for our department, a department policy sheet, and conducted all direct employee contact. Our department was doing so well that our manager was recruited by another department for a much more lucrative role in the company. The new manager was the nicest man alive, but as an outside hire, he didn't know anything about how we ran things. At the same time as he was getting acquainted with us, the other supervisor went on maternity leave. I was the only lead in the department left that really knew what they were doing. It sounds rough, but I blossomed under these circumstances. I helped find our new acting supervisor, whom I'll call Trevor. I went into all meetings with my manager to take notes and help him understand what we were discussing. I hired all the new staff members, from talking to the recruiter, conducting the interviews, and making the call to offer the position. I was running the show and I loved it. Our new manager was not really grasping things and told me he was thinking about leaving. I was sad to see him go. He then told me that he thought he would ask them to have me backfill his position. This would have been the opportunity of a lifetime. A week later, my manager told me that he talked to the director, but the position wasn't going to me. It was going to the acting supervisor, Trevor. Apparently, this guy had been schmoozing while I had been working. I hadn't even been paying attention to him. Trevor had become buddy-buddy with the director by spending all his time in his office and going drinking with him at the driving range. I was heartbroken. I wasn't aiming for the job until my boss suggested it to me. I had gotten my hopes up only to be crushed. I tried to shake it off and get back to work. I oversaw department projects. I had one that required thousands of entries on an Excel sheet. I assigned our staff to the project and did my share. At the end of the day, I had gotten the sheets back from everyone directly under me, but nobody on Trevor's team had emailed me theirs. I went to one of their desks and asked about the project. The person I asked shyly told me that Trevor told her not to do it. When I asked her why he would say that, she told me that he said I wasn't her boss. I was shocked. This is how we had done every project since we had opened the department. What was he thinking telling people not to do it? I could explain the small ways that Trevor constantly was trying to undermine me, or the almost jealous behavior he displayed toward me, but this story is long enough. I'll just say, while shocking, it wasn't out of character for him. I had always been able to keep him from causing damage in the past, and this didn't need to be any different. Then I realized what a golden opportunity this was. I decided to maliciously comply. I just nodded and thanked her for her help. The next day, the director called the manager and supervisors into his office. He asked me why the project wasn't completed the day before. I shrugged and told him I had sent it out to the team like I always do and had even done a chunk of it myself. I looked at Trevor. The look he gave me. He was pale and looked at me as if I was about to sentence him to death. When Trevor eventually tried to explain that he told the staff under him not to do it, the director asked everyone but Trevor to leave. The project had been related to payroll and Trevor had royally screwed over the payroll staff. Our director was livid. He was in there for over an hour. I heard the director raise his voice more than once, which was wild. The doors and office walls were glass, so when I passed the office a bit later, I saw Trevor with his head down while our director was shaking his head and moving his hands in a very animated manner. A week later, the other supervisor returned, and Trevor was asked to return to his old position under her. I was offered the position of manager soon after, which I gladly accepted. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.